Started, but I'm going to give you a very brief overview. So tonight we're going to talk about COVID-19 and the impact that that's had on our agency and the community that we serve. We're also going to talk about stress, which I'm sure many of us can empathize with the high level of stress that we're all experiencing right now. Last but not least, we're going to talk about family resilience and the power of this learning community. We want to share how Family Connections continues to be the hub for our families, even through the pandemic. So in a time when hope is harder to find and the future really seems uncertain, we have found that hope, inspiration, and resilience is happening right here at Family Connections every day. And I really can't wait to get started. So let's do it. So I'm going to turn it over to your Executive Director of Family Connections, Sarah Pulane. And what she's going to do is give you a very brief overview of the organization for those of you that might not know much about it. Sarah, take it away.
Thank you, Peter. Good evening, everybody. I'm so excited to see you all here. I'm a little nervous, but I'm so happy to be talking with you tonight. I will do my best to give as brief as possible an overview of the organization, which with a 27-year history can be kind of hard to do. That said, I can tell you, for those of you who don't know us so well, that we started in 1993, a group of co-op directors and participants who are really, really excited and interested in ensuring that all families had access to high quality early learning and parent engaged education, and launched this organization, which has really been, it's been an incredible journey. Our first class was held in the living room of a church-owned apartment in East Palo Alto with 5 families. And now 27 years later, we are serving hundreds of individuals a year, providing holistic whole family programming, starting in infancy, going all the way through 5th grade. Our parent participation early learning programs and our family-focused school age offerings really go beyond the realm of academics and provide social emotional learning and various supports to our families. We have robust supports, including mental health, parent education, and referrals to meet basic needs, to name just a few. We are a learning community, as much shaped by our families as it is by our incredible team and the thinking of those who support us. One of the strengths, certainly and particularly during these times, is that community, is that group of people coming together to grow together, to learn together, and to thrive together. And what we know, and what we'll talk about a little bit more tonight, is that we know that in the face of uncertainty, one of the most important things is to have consistency and reliability. Those are critically important pieces. And because our community has, let's say, stood the test of time, and because we've all worked hard, our families, ourselves, our supporters, stakeholders, and board members, our donors, to build trusting relationships, we have been able to meet this moment and be there as a support, regardless of whether we're together or apart.
Thanks so much, Sarah. And I think we're going to dive right in. So let's talk about what we as an agency, what you as the executive director have noticed around the impact of COVID-19 on the community we serve.
Sure. I mean, one of the biggest things is that COVID has touched everyone in some way, regardless of who they are or the resources that they have. That said, our community that we're supporting and serving has been, I think, on many levels, even more impacted. They've been impacted by job loss, facing food insecurity, health concerns, access to care, fear of death, and all of this bundled together can cause incredible amounts of stress. You know, and that is the piece that we're really wanting to support our families in navigating right now. We have a lot of families who've had to move homes as some of the supports that have been in place through the government have come to an end around help with rent and things like that. You know, families that have never had to worry about food, that has become a concern, often because of the economics of the household. And then to layer on top of everything, you know, people are now teaching their own children. And while some people are amazing at it, and all of us are doing our best, that for many of us is not a job that we thought we would have to do, and often alongside our jobs as well. So there's a lot there.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. And I think that that stress level for many is being experienced across the board. And when thinking about stress, I'm really interested, Sarah, what are the ramifications of all of this stress? What effect does it have on our families, on our parents, the children, really the extended family even?
Well, stress has a huge impact. I mean, we all experience stress on a day in and day out basis, right? From many different things. I mean, I think before COVID, it was, the stress of getting to our jobs, dealing with traffic, navigating a myriad of things. And there are different kinds of stress, right? There's also positive stress. We have a new family member, we get a new pet. And those are fairly typical. And we all tend to navigate those, hopefully pretty well. I think the biggest issue with what we're facing right now is that we're in a situation that is causing a great deal of stress, and we don't know necessarily when it's going to end. And so when we have to navigate stress or navigate holding stress at fairly high levels over a long period of time, that's when it becomes toxic. And toxic stress can have a really significant and deeply felt impact on kind of across the board, right? On our physical health, on our mental health, on our relationships or relationships with our loved ones, with our children, and really impact our capacity to just navigate well.
Yeah, let's talk about that toxic stress a little bit, because it's very present in our lives right now. And when considering how underrepresented families have been disproportionately negatively impacted by the current health crisis, it just seems like families like those that we serve are at heightened risk for experiencing toxic stress. So, Sarah, what have you noticed are the most significant stressors for our families right now?
Oh, so many. And it's interesting because I've had an opportunity, I've been catching up with my team recently and really hearing from them firsthand, what is happening for families. And we're noticing a lot. I mean, I think, as you said, many of the families that we serve are even more impacted by this health crisis and the ramifications of the shelter in place than other families are. And, we're supporting folks who are often experiencing significant stressors on a day in and day out basis. And then the pandemic has kind of come in and really upped the ante there, right? There's a sudden need for resources that may have been welcomed in the past, but maybe weren't as critically needed. And now there are, there's increased job loss, there's increased housing insecurity. As I mentioned before, we've got kids of multiple ages at home who can't go out. There are the worries about also what happens, if they do. We've got family members who have to go and work at jobs where their exposure or possible exposure to COVID is even more, and yet they're coming home to their families who they want to protect and ensure that they're healthy. And as the pandemic continues and things continue to be uncertain, that worry just increases and the burden on our families increases. Those are a few of the things. There's so much more.
Yeah, thanks. And I think where we want to move to now is, let's talk a little bit, and this is obviously before my time as the newcomer to the team. Let's talk about, what did Family Connections do back in March? Family Connections is a high contact in-person community. So Sarah, I'm interested to learn a little bit about the initial steps in supporting our families' increased needs while continuing to drive this really critical mission forward.
Sure. Well, the first step was really, and the most important step, and I think it continues to be, that was to make sure that our families knew and still know that we're still here for them, whether we're in person or not. Our teachers, our program specialists, everyone did everything they could to quickly connect with families, to look at what the immediate needs were, and really to respond to make sure those needs were met, whether it was providing food distribution at our sites, or dropping off care packages and food for families who couldn't get to us. You know, referring families around employment concerns, toilet paper, diapers, you know, learning materials so that kids could still, you know, engage in playful and fun learning activities that the whole family could lean into, wellness packages, or even our multi-talented clinician was creating like flower bouquets and would drop them off just to brighten somebody's day every now and again. I mean, we really leaned in when our families needed us the most. All staff were on the phones, just calling and really wanting to be connected. And if we didn't have resources ourselves, you know, we have long been, because we're a small organization, we've long been an organization that partners with the other organizations in our community. And that history of partnering and collaboration allowed us to connect families to resources that we maybe ourselves couldn't offer.
Yeah, and thank you, Sarah. And I have to say, coming onto this team and joining this team, this was the piece that just really inspired me the most, and it just made me want to be a part of it. So thank you for sharing that. And I know that many of the Family Connections team members are here, and I just want to give them a shout out and a hello and thank you. And you know, while we're talking about how we responded, Sarah, can you share a little bit with everybody? How did the families respond?
Well, the family response was really incredible. I mean, if you can think about the idea of like how busy we all are now, the things that everybody is worrying and thinking about, and that when we reached out to connect, they answered, you know, they leaned in, they've engaged. We've moved from an in-person setting to an online setting, and our families are showing up for circle time for their kiddos. They're showing up to drop-in study groups. They're showing up to parent night, in the midst of all of this, you know, kind of madness, which is really incredible. And even more importantly than that, because we can do programming, you know, we can provide space and information and ideas, but if our families aren't there, right, it doesn't really mean much at all. So that really, I want to just say like how important that leaning in of families, especially during a really stressful time, is to us, and how it allows us to really continue to do what we do and be who we are. That's what makes the community. You know, and then there were also the ways in which our families showed up for each other, which is another huge piece of this learning community, which is that we're not only showing up to learn, to have our children learn, to learn ourselves as parents, but we're showing up and building connection and community with one another. We're building lifelong friendships. We're supporting one another in times of need. We had a parent who was really struggling and needed help to navigate a really challenging situation. And one of our other parents leaned in and began, just kind of their own volition, their own choosing, making masks and selling them in order to raise some money to help this parent. And when we found out about that, what was amazing, I mean, masks are a necessity. And so we were able to lean in as an organization, get some masks for staff, get some masks we were coming up to the end of the year celebration and our drive-through graduation parade. We got masks for families and for kiddos. And we're able in that way to support an effort that didn't come from us, to support somebody else in our community, without like really even actually intruding in that process, but working to support that process. And that's just who our families are. It's just what they do for one another.
Yeah, and thank you. And that really seems aligned with Family Connections and that the trusting relationships that is in this community. I mean, so much of the programming, even before the pandemic, was really geared toward participant feedback and launching into initiatives to meet those needs. And so it's just really evident that everyone's really come together from all, I mean, the team, the families. And so thank you for sharing that. That's truly important. So let's fast forward. Let's come to today. Sarah, can you describe a little bit about what does Family Connections look like today and where are we today?
Um, Thank you. We are, in as much as we can in the midst of this pandemic, thriving on so many levels. We are still connected with our families. We're providing everything that we did before as much as we can virtually. So we have frequent contacts with our families, including circle times and um, online activities. We're restarting our groups, our parent support groups. We are able to have our parent nights and family workshops. Our Young Scholars, our school age program is, I feel like it's always had on some level had a life of its own, but it's just taking on this new iteration with new and additional leadership. And our kids, like you talked a minute ago about really hearing the feedback and listening to what our families need. And so we started out offering a drop-in study group a couple of times a week for our school age students. And they've really turned it into um, a not so much study group, but like a connection group, right? A space to kind of fill those things, that social emotional need for connection and camaraderie that we've worried about. I think all of us have worried about, being engaged in screens so much. And they're really using that time to check in with each other, to share with one another what they've been up to and what they've been doing. And they're getting so much joy from that. And it's been so incredible to watch how they've kind of led and shaped their time together in that one small way. We're still able to do our workshops. We do them virtually. We drop off, or parents pick up activity kits that they can work on in the intervening time, and then are able to then talk about those processes in Young Scholars that when we hold it every month. But these are just some of the ways that we've shifted and changed and grown. And then the other piece I think that we're really, really focused on, we're still providing resources to families who need them, but the other piece of it is, and I circle back to kind of stress and navigating toxic stress. And we've really leaned into the supports that help our parents be supported and engaged with. Parenting in general is a really, really difficult job. Parenting during a pandemic can feel insurmountable sometimes and really isolating, particularly when we're not even having those kind of, daily interactions that we might have, whether it's on site in one of our, program pieces, or, meeting somebody in the Target, or, bumping into your co-workers. We're not getting those engagements. And so we're really focused on the mental health and social emotional health of our parents and our children right now. And we are so fortunate, to have our mental health clinician, Stephanie, we have 3 interns from our partners at Palo Alto University this year. We have our incredible home visitor, Alondra, and all of our teachers leaning in to ensure those pieces and those needs are met. So that's a little bit of where we are today.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. And to tap into the mental health and mental wellness, it really does have this ripple effect that impacts everyone around you and the entire family. So let's talk about that a little bit. And what are really the key concepts that we're focusing on with families right now in order to navigate this time?
Sure. Really focusing on, there's a huge stress, particularly for not just actually all of our parents, I'll say, this academic stress, right? This concern about what their children are learning. And so we're working really to help families navigate and manage that stress. Even the stress of learning virtually. I can only speak for myself and my own child, but the screen is all right. And to stay engaged in that, throughout the day and stay connected and feel the learning in the same way that you might have felt it in person, it doesn't quite happen that way, and so it can be really challenging. So we're really supporting our families and around just doing the best they can with that, and trying to just stay grounded and breathe deeply through this process. We're working on, supporting social emotional skill building, both for children and for parents and caregivers. We're thinking and helping to think about ways that families can spend time together without screens, in looking at and thinking about that we might see increased behaviors actually both in our children and maybe even in ourselves because stress levels are high. Um, but what we're also noticing is our families are also being really creative in how that they create space at home and create opportunities to connect in ways that maybe because everybody was out, and running around in their daily lives, they weren't doing as much before. But I think one of the big keys to all of this is, if we think about the way that children learn on some level as a circle, right? That they go out in the world to explore and to learn and to grow. And our parents are there to be really our secure base from which to explore and our safe haven to which to return. And so our job as parents is to be able to watch over them as they go out into the world to explore and support them and enjoy that process with them. And then when they need us, when they need to come back to fill their cup, they need that secure base and safe haven, right? They need us to welcome them, to be with them, to be excited that they are coming to us to fill their cup so they can go back out into the world to explore and learn again. And I look at that in some terms as for us as the providers, for us as the teachers and the mental health clinicians, and everybody on our team who's here to co-create this community with our families, that we are that secure base and safe haven for the adults that we're serving so that they can then be that for their children. And I think that that is one of the biggest pieces that we're just really working on holding right now.
Thank you. Really appreciate you with that. So with time, growing short, and we want to be really mindful and have time for questions and so on. Sarah, and I know this might be challenging, but if you could roll this all up into one key takeaway, one message, what would that be?
Just one. I think I know the real key, the biggest thing to hold and to remember is that through community we're stronger and more resilient than we are when we're alone. When we lean into our trusted relationships and we find the capacity to overcome challenges that we never thought we could, and to be creative in the midst of chaos. We saw our staff leaning in and listening to what families had to say, and coming up with creative solutions to respond to their needs. We saw families lean in to support each other in any way that they could so that no one felt left behind. We saw our partners lean in and provide access to much needed resources. We saw the power of community at work. And it's in the context of this incredible community that we move forward, that we continue to connect, that we continue to learn, and that we continue to thrive.
Thank you. Okay, well, I think where we're moving into next is questions from some of our participants here with us tonight. So I will cue the Family Connection support team to send over our first question. Okay, so we have our first question coming in. Thank you very much. Okay, the first question for us, Sarah, is what are your greatest financial challenges?
Okay, well, thank you for starting with an easy question, everyone. I would say predictability. What we've noticed is leaning in to this new space, this new landscape. We've been very fortunate as an organization. We have incredible donors and stakeholders that have been longtime supporters of the work, and they've been here for us across the board every step of the way. And so we sit in deep gratitude for that. What we also see, though, is that the landscape is changing, that there are a lot of priorities out there for people to focus on. And making those decisions can be really challenging. And so prioritizing, sometimes I think maybe an organization you don't know as well, can be a hard decision to make. And so for us to be out there, to be supporting people, not supporting people, but we'll continue to support our people, but also letting people hear about us, letting people know about us is really important. I think, we talk about, it's not a new challenge, but I think multi-year funding, predictable funding. So, we have incredible funders that support us, a lot of foundations, our government entities that support us. And some of those entities are able to say, like, we'll fund you for 2 years, we'll fund you for 3 years. So having a line of sight to our future income is a really important thing, particularly right now as we look at this pandemic and as we're uncertain of how long, we're going to have to sit in these adaptive spaces. I think having that long-term outlook is really important, and having funding that we know will come in year after year.
Yes, thank you. And I'm going to move right into the next question, because this is definitely something that we are constantly talking about and considering, but I'm going to ask it. So the question is, how are you taking care of your staff? They are doing such great and incredible work as they themselves are navigating this situation.
We are absolutely doing the best we can. I think one of the things that we do, and I'm sure they could maybe come up with some things, but is really working to stay connected. So similarly as with our families, is just having that space for connection, that feeling of being a team, of being together in all of this. I think, working from home, we're all, for the most part, working remotely most of the time. And so giving flexibility around that, different people, as an example, like my preference is to like be online super early and working super early. And for some other folks, it may be to be in a little bit later. And we're just trying to move with the rhythms of everybody's unique needs as much as we possibly can, while still getting our jobs done. I'm really working on just appreciating everybody. We're going to have a bit of a staff appreciation event next week, which is really my opportunity to just thank everyone for all that they're doing, and just really letting them know that there are additional supports out there for them if they need them.
Yeah, this, as the newcomer to this group, I can say genuinely that it really is a tight-knit, small but mighty team at this agency. And they really do, similar to the learning community in and of itself, they really do lean in and step up for one another. And it's an incredible thing to support and advocate for. So I'm going to move to the next question. I have to scroll down a little here. Okay. What is the effect of distance learning on young children?
Oh, another super, super easy one to navigate. I think it's varied. I think that for some children, on some level, it can work, and I think for others, it's more challenging. Today, earlier, we're thinking and talking about this idea of like, is it the same, right? Is distance learning the same as in-person learning? And I can say that it's not. I think we all are aware of that. And at the same point in time, it's what we have. And so I think what comes in underneath that and supporting this learning are those social emotional supports, are those opportunities to take breaks from screens and take some deep breaths and find other ways to connect and engage, whether it's with family members or, siblings, or if people, have their little pods of people they're able to see, that those are important opportunities as well. And especially, our younger age group, it's really, really challenging. And so we're really just trying to think of, for us, dosage, how much time are we asking them to connect with us, and what ways, and how much of that are we infusing as much creativity and movement and things like that as possible in that learning. It's on some level why, we were really able to flex with young scholars and our study group that's now become, right, a connection group. But we feel like those are really important things to support kids in their, and be able to navigate this virtual world that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, and if I could add a little bit, we've got a team of experts in early childhood development, and there's a lot that's been coming our way around, what's most effective for our early learners. And something that's really great about the organization is we've been really nimble in adjusting the frequency and duration of the online experience for our young children in order to meet their needs, because engagement is obviously shorter virtually than it would be in person. And so that's just one way. Okay, next question. For those of us at home, what is the most important way we can support our children as we navigate this new reality of online learning?
Lots of deep breathing. It's the same, they're the same pieces. It's how do you yourself, as a parent, get to a space where you're relatively grounded in supporting them, right? It's the ongoing conversation is always about parental self-care and how we do that, and that goes beyond take a walk, take a bath, and those things, but really finding some space where you yourself as a parent can get grounded, can breathe a little bit, and then lean back in. Also, I think the biggest piece to remember is everybody's doing the absolute best they can. We are not all cut out for this job, this unexpected job. For many of us, this job with no instruction of teaching our children or even supporting their learning virtually. And so I think to also give yourself a bit of a break. Also, give our kids a little bit of a break. Understand that this is, while it's a few months old now, it's still new, it's still different. And that, I think this will all kind of come in waves. Sometimes we're going to be like, awesome day in class today. Everybody did what they needed to do and everybody was engaged. And other days, it's going to feel like it's falling apart. And if we can have patience with ourselves, if we can, reach out to friends or other people we know who might be in a similar situation, to connect, to commiserate, to let off some of that stress, we'll be in a better space, I think. And just remember that you're not alone in this.
Yes, thank you. And take care of yourselves as parents as well. It kind of ties back to what Sarah was talking about at the beginning or in the middle of the chat. We take care of ourselves, and if we're grounded, then we have the capacity to be there for our children. And sometimes I can say, as a father of two young children, I always want to fix it if they're feeling sad about something. And I remember when my daughter was engaged in her preschool online learning, which I was thinking, oh my goodness, but just being there with her, listening to her, and not trying to fix everything, and just being present and grounded for them is really, really key. Okay, so the next question, many people are talking about how the pandemic can be an opportunity to reform our systems, to work, see there they are, to work better for children and families, to build back better. How do you think we can build back better family support systems after the pandemic?
I am in love with these questions, I have to say, keeping my brain engaged at this point in time. I think we do need to look at our systems. And in addition to this job, I'm a board chair of the 4Cs, the Child Care Coordinating Council for San Mateo County. And it is incredible to see the impact of this pandemic on our early learning systems, and on our educational systems all the way through. Do I have an incredibly amazing solution to that? Maybe soon. And not to be flip about it, but I think the key is to the conversations. It's to naming the fact that our systems aren't what they could be, that they are not supporting all of our children. They are not accessible to all of our children. And they may not be the right fit for all of our children. And to really be able to begin to think about that and look at what that means, and to actively advocate for something more, for something better. And I am 110% on board for that. And I think it's not one mind that's going to solve the problem. I think it's not one person or one organization. I think it's all of us leaning in together, and getting all the feedback from all of the parents and really thinking about what we can do. And again, I just circle back to kind of what I said in my summation of, our earlier conversation, which is that we are better and stronger together. When we partner together, when we put our minds together, when we focus our energy on one cause, which I think in this case is better, more accessible education for all of our children, we can do incredible things.
And I think you really named something really important right there, which is access, right? We talk about how can we better support families and build that family support system. Well, sometimes access is really a major barrier to receiving that support. And with the virtual opportunity that we are now sort of forced into, it could open up access points for more support where it may not have been. Okay, so I'm going to move to the next question. So if we didn't have a pandemic, Family Connections would have hosted some fundraising events this year. And I know those had to be canceled. How are you handling that budget gap?
We are being creative, and we are leaning in, I think. We're really working to stay connected to our donors and stakeholders, to stay transparent about where we are and what we're doing, to share as much information as possible. We're doing fun things like this so that people can hear from us and know that we're still here and know that we're there supporting our families. Also to help new people who don't know us so well get to know us a little bit. And then we're thinking about, can we, what about a virtual event? I know there are so many and people are really, it's a lot, to continue to show up for virtual things. But we also know that, our gala every year, what has been our Night of Dreams, is such an amazing and inspirational time and such an amazing way to share our family stories with our stakeholders and with new people. And we don't want to lose that opportunity to share and to show all of the amazing things about this organization's strengths and programming and people. So we'll continue to do new things. This is completely new for us. And while it's not, a formal fundraiser, it is a new way for us to engage and connect. And we'll continue to do those things throughout this year and as we move into the future.
Cool. Okay, thank you. Okay, so our next question for us, Sarah, is what are the plans for in-person learning based on the challenges of online learning and connecting family?
Well, we have a few plans, multiple plans. If you asked our program director, Lorena, she'd give you a long list of all the options, plan A through Z. And our first piece is to assure people that as soon as it is safe to be back in person, we will do that. And that while it is still a significant risk, particularly as we enter this cold and flu season, along with COVID, it is something we are taking one step at a time. And we are also in this really thinking about our families. We have the majority of our families currently very hesitant about being in person. And because of the way we're built and structured, because of who we are as an organization, we can listen to that. And so we will continue to listen. And there are other pieces that, we have to figure out. We are a small organization. We have a total of 13 people. And one of those people is a substitute. So for us to do things like, have morning and afternoon classes, to have, you know, the space. So unlike a traditional preschool or learning program where parents drop their children off and we're solely navigating space for children, we are talking about adults and children at the same time. So we look at this very carefully. We've so far been listening to the CDC guidelines, to our counties, to the governor, and stepping through those pieces. We know we will be in person again, and we will make sure that it happens in a way that is safe for our families. And the good news is we're really able to provide much of what we're doing virtually, and then offer opportunities for families to be hands-on with activities together by dropping off our learning kits and various pieces. So we're continuing to work on it.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So we're getting close to the end of the event, and I just wanted to share again. I'm going to pull the newcomer card and just share how grateful I am to be a part of this organization. Really, Sarah and I are the ones engaging in the conversation right now, but it's really this whole team at Family Connections and the learning community that makes this all possible. I've been inspired personally as I've joined the team. And really, the most inspiring thing has been how everybody has gone above and beyond their scope of work to meet the needs of the families. And that's with the families as well, working with one another and with our team. So thank you so much. I want to shout out the Family Connections team, our board, and everybody that came today. We are so grateful. Thanks for taking time out of your night. I hope you have a great night. Take care now.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much.